The definitive edition of Age of Empires 3 is set to release with two new civilizations, the Inca and the Swedes. While the Swedes share many similarities with the original European civilizations, the introduction of the Inca sees many new cards, many new units, and many new mechanics brought into the game. In this video, I'm going to cover 6 mechanics the Inca get access to in the definitive edition that no civ before them has had access to. One of the most common criticisms about the original Age of Empires 3 is that it deviated a little bit too much from its predecessor. People often said that many of the original mechanics were missing from the game, and one mechanic that they often highlighted was the ability of monks to convert units from one side to another. In the definitive edition, the Inca now have access to this ability through their priestess unit, which has the ability to convert enemies to become permanently controlled by the Incan player. The priestess, however, is a rare unit, which means it cannot be trained like most other units. To be able to hear that glorious conversion sound, you're going to need to either send a priestess from the home city or spawn one through a long and dedicated ceremony at the community plaza. In the original Age of Empires 3, forts quite honestly were relatively useless. While they were capable of establishing map control for a short period of time, they were very easy to mitigate. For the Incas, however, they have the ability to garrison their units inside the fort, which means that when they're retreating, not only can they retreat back to their fort, but they can retreat back into their fort. In addition to their units being untargetable while they're in the fort, they increase the damage the fort does with its bombard attack against enemy units. This damage gets to the point where it's capable of one-shotting 6 to 7 units at the same time. Incan forts are also buildable by the Incan explorer, and they're able to build a fort without having to send any home city cards. Like most other civilizations in Age of Empires 3, the Inca have a number of cards that improve the strength of their buildings, from increasing HP, increasing attack, to increasing the build limit of certain defensive buildings that they have access to. In addition to those cards, the Inca have access to a number of unique cards, including one card which gives stealth to war huts and forts, and another which increases the range of these offensive buildings. My suspicion is that combining the Inca's unique ability to garrison military units inside their fort, together with their stealth ability on their forts, is going to create some absolutely hilarious compilation videos. Another interesting mechanic that's been added to the definitive edition is that the Inca are able to have a number of units avoid the unit population census. The census is what occurs every frame of the game to determine what your population is and what you can do as a result. When you're sitting at 200 of 200 pop, the census tells the game engine that you're not allowed to queue or spawn any more musketeers or send black riders from your home city. With the Inca's unique advanced barracks called the Calanca, the Inca can garrison up to 10 units inside of it at any time. Any unit that's inside of it will avoid the unit count census. Calancas have a build limit of 3, with the option of building a 4th if you send an Age 4 card. This enables you to garrison a total of 40 units at any given time. Combine this with the Inca's unique Mace Man, which is a 3 population Doppelsoldner, and you can increase your population by up to 120 space on demand. I expect that while we won't see a huge impact on supremacy, AOE3DE is definitely going to feel the wrath of the Inca for years to come. The Inca are a civilization focused heavily on their economy. With the exception of the Portuguese, they're the only civilization able to get a second town centre in Age 2, and they do that through sending an Age 2 home city card. In the event you are caught in Age 2, fighting it out with your opponent for an extended period, the ability to construct a second town centre ensures that the Inca will maintain their economic edge. Once you do eventually hit Age 3 as the Inca, your town centre limit is increased by a further 2, and you're able to have a total of 4 town centres if you've sent the Age 2 home city card. In addition to the extra 2 town centre slots that each civilization gets naturally when they hit Age 3, the Inca have access to send a card which increases their town centre limit by a further 2, and in addition to that, also sends 2 covered wagons to construct those new town centres. When you combine this with a card like Medicine, which now, in the definitive edition, reduces both the train time and the cost of villagers by 15%, you've got an economic powerhouse that is almost completely immune to raiding. And if 6 town centres wasn't enough for you, there's good news. Once you hit Age 5, you can send those 2 covered wagons again, and increase your town centre limit up to 8. Personally, I don't think this is enough town centers, and I'm calling for an infinite town center card to be added in the next patch. In the Second Age, the Incas have access to a unique archer that for the first time in Age of Empires 3 history has poison. And while we've never seen it before in Age of Empires 3, I'm sure immediately you know exactly what it's going to do. For those of you that don't, after the Incan archer takes a shot at the enemy, there's a period of time where the unit will continue to lose health as a consequence of the poison. In addition to this, the Inca have a card that increases both the damage and the duration of the poison. Initially, my reaction to this was that this is probably an underwhelming mechanic. But then I realised how many times I've gotten a skirmisher or a musketeer away on 15 or 10 health. Against the Inca, that's never going to happen again. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see content like this in the future, feel free to leave a like down below. I look forward to delving deeper into all the new mechanics that have been brought in with the Definitive Edition, and I'm excited about sharing that discovery with you.
Unfortunately, Bart, your little escapade could not have come at a worse time. Americo-Australian relations are at an all-time low. As I'm sure you remember, in the late 1980s, the U.S. experienced a short-lived infatuation with Australian culture. For some bizarre reason, the Aussies thought this would be a permanent thing. Of course it wasn't.